Good evening. We're here at LogiSYM Malaysia, and we have the pleasure of meeting with Mr. Mark Hardeman, the new CEO of the Port of Tanjung Pelepas, or as we'll be referring to, the PTP. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for speaking with us. Now, before we kick into some of the more intricate details about the port and your business, how about you give us a little bit of your background? You have a bit of an interesting one and what brought you here to Malaysia for this role.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, thanks so much. Great to be here. So I've only been, as you mentioned, I've only been 5 months, nearly going on 6 months now in Malaysia. First assignment for me actually in Southeast Asia. Most of my experience is in the Middle East. I was in Oman for 4 years before coming here. In fact, I had a bit of a sabbatical between. I took a bit of time off. After COVID and everything like that, I decided to spend some family time, so I took a year off actually, like I said. But before that, I was in Oman for 4 years, and then I was in Bahrain for 7 years before that. My background is predominantly in operations, port operations. I just progressed, let's say. So I was in a COO role there, and then a CEO role following that. Before that, various places, I'll mention just a few. I was in Nigeria for a few years, I was in Egypt for a couple of years, I was in South Africa for a couple of years, I was in Belgium as well, and then the UAE as well. So,
and you hail from South Africa.
But I am originally from South Africa,
yeah,
yes.
From a port city, I believe.
Yes,
I did do my stalking. So.
Oh, very good, very good. But it feels like a lifetime ago. I've been on the road for a long time now.
So. Definitely been all over. So now you're here just under 6 months with
Yes,
PTP?
I started the 2nd of Jan. Yeah, PTP.
And for our audiences, PTP is only about 24 years old?
Yes, yeah.
And
yeah,
already hails in the top 20 busiest ports in the world.
That's right, yes.
Could you just give us a bit of the specifications and what makes it, what's taken it to such strength to strength over these years?
Yeah, absolutely. So PTP is, it's a fantastic business to be part of. I've known about it for a long time, so to get the opportunity to head it up was just an opportunity I couldn't refuse, quite frankly. Yeah. But yes, it opened around 2000, so 24 years going now. Shareholders are MMC Ports, Malaysian based, and APM Terminals, which is a Netherlands-based company with a parent company being Maersk, which is then in Denmark, based in Denmark. But the facility itself, we're doing around, we have capacity of around 12.5 million TEUs. We're on track to possibly even exceed that this year. We're having a very strong year, based a little bit around the Red Sea crisis, which I suppose we'll get into a little bit later on as well. But we have at the moment, we have 58 cranes, key cranes, and then predominantly transshipment operation. A bit of gateway. Actually, we're having some strong volume growth in the local market, which is great to have as well. But we're also having, and this is a very interesting one and a great proposition, let's say, that PTP has to offer its customers, we have a free zone as well, which is integrated into the port. So that's what I mentioned, let's say marine activities, the stevedoring, moving containers is one pillar we would consider. The other one is the free zone, as I mentioned, and then the other one is the marine services, which we do as well. So the pilotage and the tugs, everything is done in-house by PTP.
In your free zone, you have obviously a lot of warehousing, I'm assuming.
Yes.
I haven't had a chance to go down there. So all of that encompassing, and then you mentioned the crisis. And I know that Singapore now is even dusting off some mothballed berths because of the increased capacity coming into the region. But what is the draw to your port with having Singapore right next door? What would bring the clients in?
Yeah, it's a great question, and of course we're sitting right next to the hugest, the biggest, let's say, in the region. So of course PTP has its own role to play in that sense as well. But what I would say, really, is the efficiency that we offer. I mean, as you mentioned, we're quite high up in the efficiency ranking, so that's been very good for PTP, of course, as well. But then we also, I would say, a differentiator for us is also the fact that we probably offer a cost competitive advantage as well. Costs are a bit lower where we are, so we're able to, let's say, pass that on in a competitive product, let's say, to our customers in that sense as well. And we have to be on our toes. Because transshipment essentially, which is 90% of our business, it's a very commoditized cargo. And what I mean by that is it can move easily. It doesn't need to, it's not business that happens in that place. It's in between, points A and point B. So if you're not on your toes, the business can move, let's say. But clearly we've got something right with the volumes that I mentioned, to you before, and the fact that we're having the growth. So very proud of what we're achieving at the moment. And some big expansion plans we have as well, which we're super excited about.
Yeah, we'll stay tuned for that, for
Yes.
sure. Now, if I'm drilling a bit too deep on this, I've got to get this right. So PTP was ranked number 5 in the Container Port Performance Index.
That's right.
Globally.
Yes.
And we all know from the port industry that maritime and port logistics has got one of the biggest variables to operations, so many variables that you can't control. What would you say is the biggest, if you could, the biggest reason your port is able to maintain that such a high ranking?
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
that?
So I think a couple of things I mentioned before. So if you look at the port ranking and how they're calculated, it's obviously from a shipping line perspective, from a customer perspective. So in other words, if you're making ships weight, it's going to count against you, if you want to put it that way, in the ranking. So what has helped us really, and this has been a journey in PTP, and it was similar in other places that I've worked, because where I was in Oman was a hub port as well. But I can't take credit for the work that's been done in PTP. I've only been here for 5 months, so it's the team, let's say, very much in that sense, because that ranking is actually from last year as well.
Yep.
But putting a little bit of more details onto it is that I mentioned the marine part of it. So we control the marine, which means that we have the ability to have a seamless service that we can offer our customers. So in other words, we ensure as little as possible waiting time for the ships coming in and then sailing as well. So that's key. If you doing fantastic things for a ship when it's alongside and you're doing fantastic productivity, but then it waits for a pilot, it waits for a tug to come in or whatever it is, of course that's not efficient from a shipping line perspective. They want to get them in and they want to get them out as quick as they can. So that's been one element in that sense as well. And then what we've done over the years in PTP is get very close to our customers. So we have what we call a hub operations center, for some of our customers inside of PTP. And what that has done is really helped the communication. So in other words, we're having, obviously within certain separation, let's say, but we're having our customers close to us from an operations team perspective. So in other words, our planners, be it a berth planner, be it a yard planner, be it a vessel planner, is speaking to their counterpart in the shipping line. And that means very, very close communication, not hundreds of emails going backwards and forwards where you lose, information and there's a delay. They can literally stand up and go to the office next door and talk. And we've found that has really been a differentiator in the fact that we're able to offer such a good service to our customers. I think it's really been good. And we spoke about, a little bit the congestion that's going on in the world at the moment, and working closely with our customers has actually helped us, because what's important to know is that we also, at the moment, we're not having any congestion in PTP, which is also just the way we've worked together with our customers. So we plan our yard very carefully to say, hold on, we don't have enough space now, let's prioritize this vessel because it'll be loading more, and then we free up space in the yard, as opposed to just throwing too much cargo into the yard, and then you can have a classical meltdown, let's say, where you're taking on too much cargo. So really that communication really is the I think is a very fundamental part of what's happened in PTP.
Yeah, imagine that. It's real life collaboration with your stakeholders. I mean, that's something that my personal experience on the wharf, and maybe things have changed, wasn't always the best. It was that incessant emails, and even, I'm going to date myself here, faxes. It was ridiculous.
Don't go to those days, right?
I'm going to take a little bit of a spin here because this particular LogiSYM has been centered around sustainability, and ask if you could just go through, and I know you're new, so if you could just touch lightly on the sustainability goals and practices of PTP moving into 2030, 2040, 2050.
Absolutely. So we've set ourselves a very ambitious target to reduce our emissions by 45% by 2030, and that's a baseline from 2020. So in other words, volume growth comes on top of that. We still need to count for that, because we're looking from, let's say, a 2020 base to a 2030 base. We're looking at a 50 to 60% growth in volume based on the capacity we're adding now as well. So of course that baseline stays, and so we have to be, obviously doing more, let's say, to counter that emissions. There's been a journey in PTP since going back to 2012, electrification of our RTGs. Our RTGs are the cranes that we handle the cargo in the yard, of course, so we're 100% electrified there. The big one we have to tackle now in order to reach our target is our prime movers. So that's our horizontal movement in the yard. Our tractors, as they call it in some terminals, our trucks. So those, We're in the process now. We don't have any electrification of those. Those we're busy putting together the plan right now. Actually, we have a couple of trials we've been running with various manufacturers, various OEMs, original equipment manufacturers, and we're about to actually, hopefully, award the first contracts of our first pool of prime movers that will be electrified shortly, and that's going to help us around 65% of achieve around 65% of our target.
Oh, fantastic.
That's how big it is. We're running over 550 prime movers, so 550 trucks running around.
Yep.
You know, burning diesel, of course, is not good.
No.
And then it's not a silver bullet, really, the way I see it with electrification. Although that will be the main focus, we're also looking very heavily in biofuels as well.
Yep.
We have a lot of discussions going on with Petronas, for example, where we're looking at how do we commercialize more the various different types of biofuels. Of course, in a sustainable way. We don't want to contribute to deforestation, etc. So that's why it has to meet certain criteria, and that's something that's very, very important for us as well. So that's really the big lion's share, let's say, of what we have left. And this is all scope 1, you know, obviously. We've got scope 2, scope 3, which is, you know, let's say, of course, a lot more efforts going on. But another one on scope 1 is then our tug fleets and our pilot boat fleet as well, all diesel at the moment. And we're working very closely with a few to try and see what we can do to electrify those in the future. It's quite an immature concept.
Yeah.
It's not very advanced in the maritime industry. But ultimately, what we want to do is have electric tugs, electric pilot boats as well. So that's very much on the decarbonisation, what our efforts have been on and what they are on at the moment.
That's very exciting. What year is PTP looking to maybe maintain or targeting carbon neutral? I know nobody has or they haven't gotten there.
Yeah, I suppose step by step, you know, so we're looking at 45%, as I mentioned, by 2030. You know, we haven't set this as a management team just yet,
Okay.
but I would say we're probably looking towards 2040, you know, in that vicinity, let's say, as well. But again, that's not cast in stone now. We're focusing really on 2030 for the time being.
It's still giant steps.
It is.
It's still
huge.
giant steps, and I know
Yeah.
the whole boats and on water and maritime piece is still really in the early developmental
Yeah.
stages. So it'll be interesting to see what you do with your pilot ships and your tugs.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I mean, in that space, as I mentioned, 50 to 60% volume growth. I mean, we're going from a baseline of around 10.5 million TEUs up to 2027, 28, when we have all our capacity online, to 16 million.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a
Pretty
fairly
huge.
big operation on one facility.
Yeah.
It's one terminal, which is different to some others, which are having,
Yeah.
throughput like that, but based on different terminals inside of an overall port, let's say. So.
Very impressive,
Yeah.
very impressive. Now, IETV is founded as an Australian company, very strong roots in Australia, and just now coming up through Southeast Asia. But there is a initiative called the Partnership for Infrastructure Program, the P4I,
That's right.
which is a Australian government initiative. Could you just explain a little bit about what PTP is doing in that space and
Yep.
in that partnership?
Yes, absolutely. So it's been really good support we've got from P4I. Really what it is about is, as you mentioned, the Australian government supporting countries in Southeast Asia, which we're tapping into through collaboration, including with the Ministry of Transport in Malaysia, which have really been very supportive through the process. We finished phase 1 of the study. A lot of it is around regulatory framework, socio-economic impacts, and technical assistance in that way. But that's specifically on, as we'd mentioned, that's specifically on the marine side of the
Yeah.
business for us. What we're trying to do in PTP, what our ambition is to make ourselves a green bunkering hub.
Oh, fantastic.
So we're looking at methanol. Methanol is one of the biggest developing fuels, bunker fuels for the vessels for our customers. There is the discussion about ammonia beyond that, let's
Yep.
say. Once certain safety standards are addressed, let's say, as well. And then ultimately probably looking at a hydrogen type of a solution as well. But really the methanol is a bit the focus, let's say, in the short to medium term. And then the support has been great. We're actually collaborating with the Port of Melbourne.
Okay.
Which has been really, really good. We had some visitors. We actually had a trade delegation just last month
Oh, wow.
from Australia, yes.
We should have been there for
you
that
should have
one.
been
I
there,
actually
yeah,
know
would have-
quite a people from the Port of Melbourne, so.
Yeah. So we're actually in the process of signing an MOU with the Port of Melbourne as well to try and get technical assistance, which I think is great. I mean, ports need to collaborate more.
Yeah, absolutely.
We do the same thing regardless of where you are in the world, on different scales, of course, as well. And I think, between different parts of the world, we can learn a lot from each other. So that's that's the spirit we're taking into it, and we hope to learn a lot and really put PTP on the map more in terms of being, like I said, the green bunkering hub. So it's really great support we're getting from
groundbreaking.
From hopefully
Absolutely
yes.
groundbreaking. Yes. All right. Well, I won't take too much more of your time. You're in LogiSYM tomorrow. You're going to be speaking, so hopefully we'll get a little bit more information about PTP in the meantime. Is there anything else you'd like to say about PTP in the future? You've got access to a global audience here, particularly Australian companies, because a lot of them are bringing their cargo in and out of Asia, and that's a perfect cross-docking, maybe your free zone.
Yes.
Just opportunities sitting there that people may not know about.
Yes, absolutely. So it was a really good experience having the Deputy Minister Ayres of Trade, of Manufacturing, who visited us, and we had a good discussion about the role PTP plays in the Australian trade. I mean, a lot of what happens in ports, especially hubs, is behind the scenes, so people don't always know about it. But I mean, we actually looked at the data ahead of the trade delegation visiting, and there's a significant amount of exports and imports, coming through PTP, connecting. So we're connecting the market in that sense as well, going to other parts of Asia, a very huge, important, growing market for us, intra-Asia trade, but then also going, to Europe and beyond in that sense as well. A lot of the dairy products, a lot of the meat products as well coming through PTP. We have facilities we're expanding right now. So, thank you for the support, in that sense as well. We have great support from our customers. We're going to be the Asian base for the new Gemini Alliance, which is between Maersk and Hapag-Lloyd. And a lot of your cargo will be coming, and we take that responsibility very seriously. And make sure we look after your cargo going in and going out, let's say.
Excellent. I love those long distance partnerships. Well, thank you very
so
much.
much.
I appreciate you speaking with us, and we'll see you around tomorrow, and looking forward to hearing you speak.
Look forward to that.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thanks.